Yes, welcome to Chatting Up the Chick. It's me, your host, Chris the Chick, all the way here in Cluckingham Palace. Yes, love a bit of Cluckingham Palace. Right, well, on this week's episode, you will just have me chatting to you as I couldn't get anyone else to come on my show because I'm just void of friends at the moment, which isn't surprising considering I never make an effort to actually talk to anyone. So this week I had a musing that I wanted to grieve, or should I say, and it's got nothing to do with the US 2020 election, thankfully. But last week, my wonderful wife and we went for a week away in New Zealand, and whilst I was away, I had a good chance to think about this book that I've been reading. Now, this book is called How to Give Up Plastic by Will McCullum. And if you're not too sure about my journey so far, if you are interested, the way you should be because you're listening to this podcast. But I went through a stage where I wanted to make my journey as a human being a little bit more, what's the term? I wanted it to be more kind of fulfilling. And I decided after becoming vegetarian and then becoming vegan as well, I wanted to go in a different direction. And obviously one of the biggest issues that we're facing today on this planet is overconsumption. And part of that overconsumption is plastic. Now, if you're not too sure about the plastic problem that the world currently is having, I would just go on Google and just Google the issue with plastic, and straight away you'll get an understanding of the magnitude that plastic has caused this planet on an environmental scale. Like the plastic garbage patch that's currently sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is phenomenal, and not in a good way. It's pretty. I just again, if you haven't seen it, go and see it. There's YouTube videos of it. It's just beyond anything that I could describe on this podcast. But anyway, whilst I was away on holiday, I started trying to get more motivation towards how I, as a single entity, can deal with the plastic issue. At the beginning of the year, I write a blog, and I decided to take the challenge of trying to go waste free. Now, if anyone has tried to go waste free, they understand the massive amounts of change that you have to make in your day-to-day life to become waste free. Now, I tried it. I can tell you now, I did not become waste free. That's how difficult it was. I certainly reduced my waste considerably. At the moment, I would say here in New Zealand, I've got a small landfill bin. I can't remember how big it is. Is it like 60 litres or something? It's not very big. But anyway, my bin will get emptied. I will fill that bin up once every probably 6 weeks. Sometimes every 2 months. It all depends on that period of time and what I'm consuming. But on average, yeah, about once every 6 weeks, that bin will get filled up and sent away. Which to some people is like, wow, that's amazing. To me, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm creating so much waste. So like, it's like going to the gym. You want to make your muscles bigger, but because it's such a gradual process, you don't actually see your muscles getting bigger. You obviously feel stronger, but because you're always looking at your own body, you never actually see those subtle changes. So it's like it's the proverbial carrot. You're always chasing for something more, aren't you? But I went through a stage where I just lost a lot of motivation. I lost a lot of hope actually in how I, as an individual, could make an impact on the plastic problem. And it wasn't until I started reading this book that it gave me a renewed hope. Because not only have I made those subtle changes in my individual life to become um, more cognizant of how much waste I'm actually producing, but also now I'm starting to realize, just like anything in life, unless you're obviously, I don't know, playing golf against yourself, anything in life, one person can only make a change in their life. Now, if the 7.5 billion people on this planet all made the same change, then problem solved. But that's never going to happen. Um, and mainly because even if 7.5 billion people made individual changes to become more waste free, well, just from my own experiment, it's almost impossible. Uh, like, I'll give you an example. Um, Toothpaste. Like the way we package up toothpaste, how are you supposed to get away from any kind of waste? But at the same time, after reading this book, I've also realized that there are ways of making your own toothpaste, which is phenomenal. It's like, being able to make your own toothpaste, for me, that is better than an hour and a half session at the gym, full on, getting the DOMS. If you don't know what DOMS are, that's delayed onset muscle soreness, which is every weightlifter's desire. Desire. Um, so being able to create your own product, wow, yeah, like again, this book has opened my eyes to new ways of individually changing and becoming less of wasteful at the same time. But what this book did open my eyes to is I spent too much time thinking about what I could do individually to change. And as admirable as that is, it's really not going to change much out there. It'll change my life, but it won't change anything out there. It won't stop plastic from being dropped into the rivers and then floating out into the ocean and collecting in a massive garbage patch in the middle of the Pacific. It's not going to stop that. The only way we're going to stop that is by putting pressure on those companies that we give our money to and saying, hey, I enjoy your product, but I don't enjoy how your product comes to me. So my new adventure, my new journey in life is now looking at all the things that I buy that have plastic in them. And it's those single-use plastics. Like, don't get me wrong, plastic has a place in this world. You know, if you don't get fresh water, or you don't have the means to fresh water, then plastic bottled water might be the only thing that's keeping you alive. So I understand that there is a use of plastic in as well. It's those single-use plastics that need to attack first. Like I love cereals, and I know you can go to um, bulk food places like Bin Inn here in New Zealand, and you can buy cereal on bulk without use of plastic. But the problem is that they have the cereal that I don't particularly like. Um, and there's an argument to be made by saying, well, what's more important, my taste buds or the planet? And I would say both, because food's there to be enjoyed. And again, you could go down a whole rabbit hole of some people don't even have the opportunity to enjoy good food, and I understand all that, and that's a quagmire that I'm not going to go down today, but it's certainly worth investigating there in the future. But putting the pressure on the companies to change how they currently produce things. So again, I like these cereals, but the problem I have is that the cereals come in a cardboard box, which we can recycle, or we can use as for your fires. You know, if you have a log burner, you can use it as tinder or whatever. You can even use it to mulch into your compost. But it's those plastics that they put the product into, and I understand why the plastic's there for freshness and hygiene and stuff like that. But there are products out there that one you can compost. So there's compostable bags that you can now get. Hemp, the beautiful thing that is the hemp plant that can create a packaging that will compost or uh, oh, damn, the bloody name's gone right off the top of my head. Um, decompose. I can't think of the word right now. But it takes 3 months for it to fully compost, whereas a piece of plastic can take up to 1,000 years. Like it just seems illogical to me that we're not making those changes right now. Just why are we not using hemp as a product to be able to create much more fulfilling the environment's desire to heal? Simple as that. So, what I wanted to say in this quick little podcast is the only way, if you're really worried about the state of the world, you're worried about the overconsumption, you're worried about plastics and microplastics and, just simple things like, if we're talking about statistics, over 90% of seabirds are likely to have plastic in their gut. That absolutely terrifies me. Like, that's like, you've seen the videos of the wonderful albatross where the albatross chicks have died and they've opened up the albatross to see why it's died, and inside the chick is just plastic. It's like, oh my, like, it's disgusting. Less than half of the 35 million plastic bottles that British people throw away are not recycled. Like, we have to realize that recycling is not the answer here, because it's not even recycling, it's downcycling. Every time plastic gets recycled, it loses the ability, or it loses its structure to the point where it just becomes unusable. So where does it go? Well, then it just goes into landfill. So eventually all plastic is going to go into landfill. All plastic is going to get incinerated, and then all the toxic fumes are going to go into the atmosphere. There's nothing good about plastic. That's what I'm basically saying. Roughly a third of plastic in the ocean comes from microfibers, which can be released when washing our clothes. So if your clothing isn't even natural fibers like cotton, silk, wool, rayon, I think is the other one. Everything else that's polyester or some sort of unnatural fiber, every time you wash it, those fibers come off the clothing and they just get washed away into your grey water system, which eventually goes out into the ocean. So that's why there's billions and billions and trillions of microplastics within the water system. One rubbish truck of plastic enters the ocean every minute. I don't even want to think about that. That makes me cry. 120 billion plastic bottles are made by Coca-Cola every year. 120 billion plastic bottles. That is nuts. Like, I don't even need to say anything about that. So my takeaway point for this quick little episode is plastic is a problem. There's nothing good about plastic, i.e., I understand plastic can be a great use for storing water, and the medical institutions need plastic for hygiene and keeping things clean and stuff like I understand all that, but in its essence, as a single thing, plastic is not good, because it will always stay in the system somehow. Like I said before, it's not recycling, it's downcycling. At one point, it's going to become useless, and then what are you going to do with that plastic? Well, it has to go somewhere. And the third thing for the take home is, if you really are serious about the plastic problem, start contacting all the companies that you enjoy their products and start putting pressure on them to start finding more sustainable, more environmentally friendly ways of packaging up their products, and make sure they don't greenwash either. Anyway, that's enough from me. You've heard me rant on for the last 12-13 minutes. I'm turning into Ali G again. Lovely to have you as a listener. Get in touch with me, talk to me. I'll even get you on the show if you want to be on the show, because I'm all about just that interaction with different minds and finding, because I want to better myself. I want to find new and better ways of doing life, and not just for myself but for everyone else. So yes, you've been listening to Chatting Up the Chick. Wickeder, wickeder, wickeder. Get rid of that plastic. Sweet as.